What's up, Ice and Fire fans? Welcome back to the House of Vine podcast and part 3 of the Kevan Lannister P.O.V. breakdown, the Epilogue to A Dance with Dragons. Now, real quick, I want to say sorry for slacking so much on my Game of Thrones Season 6 breakdown videos. I know as a whole, my channel isn't as frequent as other Ice and Fire podcasts out there, and I do apologize. All I can ask is for you to cut me some slack. I mean, it is summertime after all. Anyway, we got a long video ahead of us, so let's hop right back into the chapter so we can wrap up this small council meeting, then take our leave so we can head over to dinner with King Tommen and the Queen Mother.
Let us move along, my lords. We have 2 queens to try for high treason, you may recall. My niece has elected trial by battle, she informs me. Sir Robert Strong will champion her. The silent giant, Lord Randall grimaced. Tell me, sir, where did this man come from? Demanded Maester Pycelle. Why have we never heard his name before? He does not speak, he will not show his face. He is never seen without his armor. Do we know for a certainty that he is even a knight? We do not even know if he's alive. Kevan Lannister had a strong suspicion of just who this Sir Robert really was, beneath that gleaming white armor. A suspicion that Maester Pycelle and Randyll Tarly no doubt shared. Whatever the face hidden behind Strong's helm, it must remain hidden for now. His Grace named Sir Robert to the King's Guard, Sir Kevan reminded him, and Kevan vouches for the man as well. Be that as it may, we need Sir Robert to prevail, my lords. If my niece is proved guilty of these treasons, the legitimacy of her children would be called into question. If Tommen ceases to be a king, Marjorie will cease to be a queen. Whatever Cersei may have done, she is still a daughter of the Rock, of mine own blood. I will not let her die a traitor's death, but I have made sure to draw her fangs. All her guards have been dismissed and replaced with my own men. In place of her former ladies-in-waiting, she will henceforth be attended by a scepter and 3 novices selected by the High Septon. She is to have no further voice in the governance of the realm, nor in Tommen's education.
So, Cersei's trial. We hear that the Queen Mother had enough sense to take a page from her little brother's book demanding trial by combat, putting her faith in the gods. And by the gods, I mean the 8-foot newly sworn Kingsguard, Robert Strong. Since confessing to the High Sparrow about sleeping with her cousin and 3 of the Kettleblacks, and following her walk of atonement, Cersei's been playing the role of a good little lady. We'll see more of this later when we join her for dinner. For now, I'll just say it's probably bullshit. An act. Cersei doesn't have faith that the 7 will intervene to prove her innocence. She knows the best fighter with a big-ass fucking sword will be the one to prove her innocence. Now, let's talk about Sir Gregor. For many of us in the fandom, we were extremely eager to learn the identity of Robert Strong in the upcoming Winds of Winter. Sadly though, it was pretty much revealed at the end of Season 4 when Qyburn began his work and officially confirmed at the end of Season 6. So, unlike the TV series, Sir Kevan doesn't know who Robert Strong really is, though he has a pretty good idea. Kevan suspects Mace and Randyll have their suspicions as well. Mace probes Sir Kevan, trying to get information out of him about Sir Robert. I'm not all that convinced that Mace actually thinks it's Gregor. It's hard to say for sure. If he has an idea, the amount of questions he was asking could have been an attempt to confirm it, perhaps to get Kevan to slip up and spill the beans. Regardless whether Mace suspects Strong is Clegane, or if he knows for sure, it probably wouldn't be wise for him to start telling people he believes Robert Strong is actually the reanimated corpse of Tywin's mad dog, for the fear of sounding crazy. The ironic part of their discussion is Lord Tyrell asking, do we know for a certainty that he is even a knight? If Robert Strong is the mountain that rides, then not only is he definitely a knight, but the man was knighted by Rhaegar Targaryen himself. Now back to the trial. I don't think we'll see a Clegane Bowl in the form of Cersei's trial by combat, but I'm pretty sure whomever Sir Robert has to fight is going to die a pretty quick death. Unless, of course, the books take the same route as the show, having Tommen outlaw the use of trial by combat in all 7 kingdoms. The big issue surrounding theories on whether Cersei will win or lose her trial is tightly wrapped up in how Martin writes. For example, At the end of the first book, Martin kills off our beloved protagonist, Eddard Stark, which is a huge upset in itself. This leads readers to assume that, in terms of storytelling, the son will get his revenge against the Lannisters and continue ruling as king in the north. But oops, no, the son is dead as well. It's a twist! Another example might be Stannis and his upcoming battle against House Bolton. Now, I'm trying not to use Stannis dying in the show as a blueprint, but with that said, in the books, though it appears Stannis has the upper hand on the approaching Frey and Manderley forces, this might be just Martin setting us up for another plot twist. Stannis uncovering the Karstark's deception, possibly turning the Manderleys to his side, all of these advantages only to inevitably lose the battle for Winterfell. My point is that Sir Robert serving as Cersei's champion seems like a sure thing, but a lot of people believe that she'll lose for that exact reason. However, I will add that Martin knows his fans, and what he knows is that so many of us readers want Cersei to get her just desserts. It would be right up our author's alley to have a hated character cleared of any wrongdoing. There's another piece of text which might give us a hint as to the possible outcome of Cersei's trial. The passage up next isn't found in the Dance with Dragons epilogue though, so we're gonna have to turn back a bit to one of our Dornish perspectives.
Maester Pycelle bowed, Sir Gregor's head still clutched in his soft pink hands. "I'll take that." O'Barra Sand plucked the skull from him and held it at arm's length. "What did the mountain look like? How do we know that this is him? They could have dipped the head in tar. Why strip it to the bone?" "Tar would have ruined the box," suggested Lady Nym, as Maester Pycelle scurried off. "No one saw the mountain die, and no one saw his head removed. That troubles me, I confess. But what could the bitch queen hope to accomplish by deceiving us? If Gregor Clegane is alive, soon or late the truth will out. The man was 8 feet tall. There's not another like him in all of Westeros. If any such appears again, Cersei Lannister will be exposed as a liar before all the 7 kingdoms. She would be an utter fool to risk that. What could she hope to gain?"
So, when I included this conversation to the possibility that Cersei will win her trial by combat, it had me thinking, I wonder if this plot is leading up to a remove your helm type scene, like we got in A Clash of Kings when the reader is first introduced to Brienne of Tarth. Remember, we first meet Brienne as a mystery knight going up against Sir Loras Tyrell in a melee for King Renly. After declaring the mystery knight champion, Renly asks the warrior to remove his helm, and it's revealed that this champion is actually a woman. Keeping this in mind, what do we know about Sir Robert Strong? We know that his identity is shrouded in mystery, which in a sense makes him a mystery knight. We know that he will soon participate in single combat, a melee, in front of all of King's Landing. If Cersei is going to win, here's how I see it unfolding, roughly. 1. Robert Strong champions Queen Cersei in her trial by combat. 2. Robert Strong defeats whoever was chosen to fight on behalf of the faith. 3. Whoever presides over the trial by combat, most likely the High Sparrow, will proclaim Sir Robert as victor, then will ask him to remove his helm so that the 7 may look upon his face, or some bullshit like that. 4. At first, Sir Robert refuses, which raises some suspicion. 5. The knight has no choice but to remove his helm, revealing his true identity. 6. Cersei, cleared of all charges, now has a bigger problem on her hands. Not only will she be exposed as a liar, considering Sir Gregor isn't actually dead, as she promised the Martells, but it will also appear that she used nefarious methods to ensure her survival. If it really is Gregor's ugly mug beneath that helm, and not the head of someone else, like so many Robert Strong theories suggest, and if he looks the same as he does on the show, surely this reveal would bring the conflict between the High Sparrow and Cersei to a boiling point. One final piece of food for thought on this passage, and then I promise to move on. Consider this. If the trial plays out the way I suggest, ending with an undead Sir Gregor unmasked before all of King's Landing, there's a chance that it might tie in with the others and the eventual War for the Dawn. How so? Well, we know the others aren't just bedtime stories. that they really exist and will soon invade Westeros. Back in A Clash of Kings, we saw how the small council and the rest of the court responded when Sir Alliser brought to them claims of dead men rising beyond the wall. Though Tyrion initially humors the possibility that Alliser is telling the truth, it's quickly discarded once Bronn starts cracking the seventh hell up. Since Alliser's proof decayed while waiting to be seen, his report is openly mocked and laughed at. This makes me think that when reports of castles falling to Icemen and swarms of the dead begin to arrive in the south, people are going to treat those reports the exact same way. Unless our author intends on having the others annihilate the people of Westeros completely, he's going to have to give them some advantages, right? I mean, besides dragons. If the mountain's identity comes to light in front of a giant crowd consisting of nobles, clergymen, and other lowborn, sure, they'll be surprised to see him still walking around. However, it won't be that cut and dry because if this is the face people are going to see, they're in for a rude awakening. But in the grand scheme of it all, this might actually be a good thing. This will give us loads of people, particularly those in power, who have now seen a man risen from the dead. Now when those first reports start coming in, they're taken seriously. And if dragons are a reality to the people of Westeros by then, they might actually take action, giving them a better chance to defend against the others and the horde of whites. Anyway, it's time for us to move on. Let's continue listening to the chapter so we can finally wrap up this damn small council meeting.
My niece will make no further mischief. You have my word on that, my lord. Tyrell gave a grudging nod. As you say, my Marjorie prefers to be tried by the faith, so the whole realm can bear witness to her innocence. If your daughter is as innocent as you'd have us believe, why must you have your army present when she faces her accusers? Sir Kevan might have asked. Soon, I hope. Is there aught else?
We should address the Rosby inheritance. 6 claims have been put forth.
We can settle Rosby at some later date. What else?
Preparation should be made for Princess Myrcella.
That is what comes of dealing with the Dornish. Surely a better match can be found for the girl. Such as your own son, Willis, perhaps? Her disfigured by one Dornishman, him crippled by another. No doubt, but we have enemies enough without offending Dorne. If Dorne Martell were to join his strength to Cunnington's in support of this feigned dragon, things could go very ill for all of us.
Mayhaps we can persuade our Dornish friends to deal with Lord Cunnington,
Sir Harry Swift said, with an irritating titter.
That would save a deal of blood and trouble.
It would. Time to put an end to this. Thank you, my lords. Let us convene again 5 days hence, after Cersei's trial. As you say, may the warrior lend strength to Sir Robert's arms.
So, Kevan promises that Cersei's wings have been clipped, thou shalt no longer cause trouble for the small council in the governance of the realm. Our king's hand, though, doesn't seem all that convinced. The fact that we know Sir Kevan will be dead by the end of this chapter, I see this as a hint given to us by Martin that Cersei will definitely be stirring up the pot of trouble in the upcoming novels. With her father and uncle both dead, and a brother who seemingly wants nothing more to do with her, Cersei has no one left around from her own house to keep her in check. Too bad Aunt Jenna isn't around. She'd probably put Cersei in her place. Now, real quick, I want to talk about the other trial, Queen Marjorie's trial by faith. Originally, I was going to skip over this topic considering I spent so much time discussing the trial by combat, but then I found a clue in the most recent Winds of Winter sample chapter, Arianne 2, which might give us some insight on the trial's outcome. Spoiler warning if you haven't read it. Towards the end of that chapter, Arianne Martell finally reaches Griffin's Roost to treat with Jon Con and the Golden Company. Again, spoilers. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Okay, so the Dornish princess is informed by Haldon Halfmaester that young Griff was successful in taking Storm's End. This is a huge victory for the company and spells trouble for the small council. However, this news is only what led me to the clue that I mentioned earlier, but it's an important detail. The actual clue is found all the way back at the beginning of the chapter when Feathers tells Arianne that there's been mutterings of Red Ronnet leading a host south to retake the Stormlands. Does that ring any bells for you? Let me help you out. Remember, Red Ronnet was placed under house arrest back at the beginning of this epilogue. Lord Mace said that he'd be allowed to prove his loyalty after his daughter's innocence was proved. I don't think he would have been able to leave the city unless the Queen's safety was secured. Well, unless Mace and Marjorie are dead. Anyway, next we get to the issue of the Rosby inheritance. Pycelle informs them that 6 people have put forth their claim on the ancient seat. Kevan pushes the issue aside though, I'm sure after hearing the part about the 6 people. I'm sure many of you wrote this off as Kevan did, placing it on the random information list. However, it's actually kind of important to King's Landing that is. See, a majority of the capital's food supply comes from Rosby down the Rosby Road. It's crucial that the small council grant the inheritance to someone they can rely on. If they were to give it to a person that could potentially plot against them, it would have serious repercussions. Losing a major supply line just as the winter's kicking off is borderline death sentence. Trust me when I say this issue will play a major role in the next book. Now for the last issue on the day's agenda. The return of Princess Myrcella. Mace suggests finding a new match for her. Kevan assumes he has his own son in mind. I think the time has come for me to apologize to Mace for talking so much shit on him earlier in this series. I never liked the man since he gets a lot of credit for stuff he didn't technically do. But after going through this chapter over and over and over again, I realized something. Consider this statement. This is what comes of dealing with the Dornish. At first, we take this as being a product of 2 things. The first being Mace's resentment toward the Martells for what happened to his son Willis. The second being the centuries-long enmity between the people of the Reach and the people of Dorne. Among other things, the 2 regions have a long history of border disputes. This is why we take Mace's comment as being a little biased. That of course he's not gonna wanna ally himself with the Dornish. Here's the thing though, the Dornish shouldn't be trusted. Not only have the Martells lied to the throne as to what really happened to the Princess Myrcella, we also know that they're actively plotting against them. Kevan fears that such actions as finding a new husband for Myrcella would only offend Dorne, driving them to side with their enemies. But the damage was already done back when the Mountain killed Elia and her children. Furthermore, with the death of Oberyn. Come on, Kevan, did you learn nothing from your big brother? By the way, this whole issue further cements the idea of P.O.Vs constantly being wrong in their assumptions. The funniest part of this conversation is Lord Swift suggesting that the Dornish deal with the Golden Company to save them all blood and trouble. The way things are looking right now, the exact opposite is going to happen. Okay, so that wraps up the small council meeting. Now this video is getting kind of long, so we're going to go over one more passage, then conclude this part 3.
Randall Tarley left the hall with his liege lord. Tarley is a real danger, Sir Kevan reflected as he watched their departure. A narrow man, but iron-willed and shrewd, and as good a soldier as the Reach could boast. But how do I win him to our side?
Lord Tyrell loves me not,
Grand Maester Pycelle said in gloomy tones when the hand had departed.
This matter of the moon tea, I would never have spoken of such, but the Queen Dowager commanded me. If it pleased the Lord Regent, I would sleep more soundly if you could lend me some of your guards.
Lord Tyrell might take that amiss.
I am in need of guards myself. These are perilous times.
I thought Kevan Lannister, and Pycelle is not the only council member our hand would like to replace. Mace Tyrell had his own candidate for Lord Treasurer, his uncle. The last thing I need is another Tyrell on the small council. He was already outnumbered. Sir Harry's was his wife's father, and Pycelle would be counted upon as well. But Tarley was sworn to Highgarden, as was Paxter Redwine, presently sailing his fleet around Dorne to deal with Euron Greyjoy's armed men. Once Redwine returned to King's Landing, The council will stand at 3 and 3, Lannister and Tyrell. The seventh voice would be the Dornish woman, now escorting Myrcella home. The Lady Nym, but no lady, if even half of what Qyburn reports is true. A bastard daughter of the Red Viper, near as notorious as her father, and intent on claiming the council seat that Prince Oberyn himself had occupied so briefly. Sir Kevan had not yet seen fit to inform Mace Tyrell of her coming. The Hand, he knew, would not be pleased. Hire the mountains men. Red Runnet will have no further use for them. He did not think that Mace Tyrell would be so clumsy as to try and murder either Pycelle or Swift. But if guards made them feel safer, let them have guards.
Sir Kevan reflects that Lord Randall is clearly the real danger, not Mace. He calls him narrow, as in he lacks a willingness to appreciate alternative views, but that he's also iron-willed and is an extremely capable soldier. He wonders how he can win him to House Lannister's side. Now, if you remember back in part 1, I told you to keep an ear out for who might be spying on the small council for Varys. You probably already guessed that it's Randyll Tarly. We saw that he was trying to slow down the throne's response to the southern incursions, and when you consider that he's constantly shadowed by his liege lord, switching sides doesn't seem all that unlikely. Next, Pycelle approaches the Lord Regent claiming that Mace has it out for him over the issue involving Moontea and Margaery. He requests that Kevan leave him guards for protection. Lord Swift chimes in, asking for guards as well. If you read the Mercy chapter, you know what came of that. Kevan notes that Mace would love nothing but to replace both Pycelle and Swift on the small council. Presently, the council stands at 3 and 3, Lannister and Tyrell. The missing council member on the side of the Tyrells is that of Master of Ships, Paxter Redwyn, currently sailing to deal with the Ironborn. However, I think he's going to run into his predecessor, Yaraine Waters, the suspected Corsair King, before he actually reaches the Iron Islands. The seventh council member missing is that of Oberyn's replacement, the Lady Nym. We learn that Kevan has yet to inform the Hand of her coming. Since we know Kevan will die before getting a chance to tell Mace of her arrival, this is going to have some very serious repercussions. Not only will they be dealing with the fallout of Kevan and Pycelle's murder, Lady Nym will then show up demanding her small council seat that Mace knows nothing about. Okay, so let's end this video here. In my final video, we'll finally get to that dinner with the king and his mother. Then, we'll discuss all the consequences involving Kevan and Pycelle's deaths. Thanks for watching. And as always, share, like, and subscribe to stay updated and be the first to watch newly uploaded videos.